Good morning and Happy New Year. We're happy to be here kicking off this year with really some important issues that we've got to tackle fiscally moving into the new year. You know, a number of years ago, CBS 21 did a number of stories, some exposés on welfare reform for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I have a list of some of the stories. Whistleblowers accuse Department of Public Welfare fraud. Lottery winner bilks the system by continuing to collect welfare after winning a large lottery award. Welfare loopholes allow people to collect welfare when they're living with their wealthy relatives. Legal loopholes allow illegal immigrants to collect welfare. I can tell you that we've got a package of welfare bills right now, 20 in all, that are being proposed that will change the dynamic of the state of Pennsylvania moving forward. Representative Kaufer will use the term breaking the cycle of poverty, and I can tell you that Pennsylvania, we need to break Pennsylvania's cycle of poverty. We need to get away from a mentality of borrowing and increasing taxes to growing our economy. And one of the things on the horizon is making sure that we're very astute at taking care of our welfare benefits moving forward. The Cato Institute did a study a number of years ago, work versus welfare trade-off. An interesting study, I read it. The result was that recipients of assistance that include temporary assistance for needy families, supplemental nutrition assistance programs, Medicaid, housing assistance, utility assistance, earned more than the average pre-tax first-year wage for teachers in 11 states, and more than starting wages for administrative assistants in 39 states. So the study inferred that people are likely to choose welfare over work as this trend continues. We've got a situation in the state of Pennsylvania where people choose welfare over working. The current fiscal year that we're in, we borrowed about $1.5 billion to take care of a shortfall in last year's budget, and our human service expenditures are forecast to drastically outpace the growth of inflation over the next decade. We stand at a place and a time here in Pennsylvania that we have got welfare programs that are stressed to provide the benefits that we need for our most vulnerable citizens, that are a deterrent to obtaining the dignity that comes with earning a living, and aren't supplying the workforce that job creators need in order to grow. You know, I drove down 81 today, and when you take a look at billboards used to advertise products and services for companies. Now about 3 out of every 10 billboards are help wanted signs. I've got employers in the district that I represent and that I've met with throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that are starved for a skilled and an unskilled workforce, and we've got a welfare dynamic right now that is encouraging people not to enter the workforce and the dignity that you get by working and to stay at home and collect benefits. So I've got, along with my colleagues, this list of welfare reform bills, a package that will address this situation proactively. We can't end up in the same situation that we have with our pension crisis by allowing this debt to creep up on us and then pay it back over decades. So I'm honored to be here working in the very first day back in 2018 and working with my colleagues to make sure that we are proactively addressing a welfare crisis that is looming in the state of Pennsylvania. I want to introduce Representative Aaron Kaufer, who has been instrumental in putting together and helping support many of these bills. I have to also mention that we've got Speaker of the House Representative Turzai here, and we are fully supported by leadership. I had a conversation with Dave Reed. He'll be in the Capitol later today, but fully supportive of the effort. So, Representative Kaufer, please.
Thank you, Representative Tobash. Welfare reform means breaking the cycle of poverty, true self-sufficiency, an even-handed approach. The question arises, why now? Well, this has been years in the making. I can tell you it's been 3 years for me that I've been working on this. And I think it's important that we're here on January 2nd and why we're talking about this to set the stage for budget negotiations going forward. But more importantly, the right time to work on welfare reform and workforce development is when the economy is growing and jobs are available. Not when the economy is down, but when we're actually growing and there are jobs out there. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. and under the leadership of Speaker Turzai when he was policy chair, Dave Reed when he was policy chair with the Poverty Initiative, and currently with Chairman Benninghoff, these have been a focus of policy on focusing on welfare reform and workforce development. I have to give credit as well to my friend and colleague, Mike Tobash. We would not be here today with all the work that we've done without him being here, and he deserves a shout out as well. But this is about setting up our state in the direction of growth. In Luzerne County, employers like Medico Industries, I just talked with Tom Medico just a couple days ago. They're hiring 100 more people, but literally can't get people to walk in the doors. Can't get people to show up on time. Can't get people to pass a drug test. Berkshire Hathaway is growing in Luzerne County. Chewy.com needs more people. The government must partner with the private sector to break the cycle of poverty, turning people who are receivers of tax dollars to contributors and truly bending cost curves in our budget. The overarching theme is people are happier and healthier when they take pride in their work. We need to protect the vulnerable while helping people transition from dependency to self-sufficiency. Our message is not cost savings, although it's certainly in that perspective of which it's veiled. It's removing the barriers for real people who face a system that's created by the government where people are empowered to achieve. Our welfare reform motivation is not fiscal, but human. People want to work, but the system is failing them. This is about unlocking people's potential. It's time to restore the working class. We need to support Pennsylvanians who truly need it. And history proves the best antidote to poverty is economic freedom. As I said before, people want to work, but we've created a system that isolates them and encourages them to rely on failing bureaucratic systems. Our system has robbed too many Pennsylvanians of hope. It's time we give people a genuine path out of poverty. 23,200 more Pennsylvanian families fell below the poverty line in 2015 than in 2010. Our welfare system isn't helping the poor, it's trapping them in this cycle of poverty. A system that slashes help at the first sign of independence is self-defeating. This isn't about reforming the welfare experience, it's about freeing people from welfare. It's a complete restructuring and rethinking of our responsibility to those in poverty. Work requirements, for example, are helping thousands of people rise above poverty to independence. After Kansas implemented work requirements for able-bodied adults in 2013, almost 13,000 Kansans were freed from welfare. Nearly 60% of those leaving food stamps found employment within 1 year, and their incomes rose by an average of 127% per year. What's more, the number of able-bodied adults on food stamps dropped by 75%. Overwhelming majorities of those in poverty, 81% of those in poverty, and the non-poor, 91%, support work requirements, according to a survey by the LA Times and the American Enterprise Institute. The best anti-poverty reform is work, and we should embrace it. Welfare as a way of life can crush the human spirit, take away people's dignity, and leave them stuck in poverty. Work requirements help people escape the poverty trap. The work-first state welfare reforms in the 1990s moved millions of Americans back into the labor force. Now it's time for an update. Work requirements for able-bodied adults means more resources which can be devoted to those who truly need it. Recently, public welfare became the largest department in the state's general fund budget, surpassing education spending. But we are still not seeing people rise from poverty. 40 cents of every taxpayer dollar funds human services. This year, total Department of Human Services spending is $12.2 billion in the general fund, $21.3 billion including federal funds. That's about 40% of the general fund budget and 80% of the federal funds in the general fund budget. But these dollars aren't always getting to people who truly need them. Growing welfare spending is diverting funds from other priorities like education and transportation. What's worse is that our welfare system is trapping people in poverty, robbing them of dignity, and not serving those who need it most. Human services spending has grown by more than 100% since 2000. But this spending has failed to lift people out of poverty. Work requirements, on the other hand, have been proven to help individuals escape poverty and realize self-sufficiency. Total Medicaid enrollment is 2.8 million, about 700,000 due to the expansion in Pennsylvania. 1 in 5 Pennsylvanians is on Medicaid. Total Medicaid spending is $6.9 billion from the general fund this year, and $26 billion including federal funds. Now, as we look at what other states have done, how many people have come off welfare rolls and initiatives that we're talking about? Looking at healthy adults on SNAP in Kansas, 75% of people. In Florida, 85% of people. Maine, 90%. And the estimate for Pennsylvania, 80 to 100,000, would be about 52 to 66%. The increase in economic growth, if we're talking about higher incomes, what we've seen in Kansas already, 127% income increase, 114% increase in Maine, and for Pennsylvania, with these estimates, it would leave us with about $175 million to $210 million in additional income. In Kansas, there was $3,000 in wage growth for every $2,000 lost in benefits. We're talking about solutions-oriented government here. We must ensure a safety net is there for those who truly need it while restoring the dignity of work. That will help Pennsylvanians realize their potential and achieve independence. Part of my focus is that we need to integrate work requirements and sliding scale benefits throughout the state's human services programming. We did that in 2015 with the child benefits cliff. The department's claims to have a work-first approach, but too often work is watered down to job searching or job training. Enrollees should be rewarded, not punished, for increasing their incomes or working more hours. This means benefits should gradually phase out as incomes grow. This is already a feature of TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, but food stamps, housing subsidies, and medical assistance contain significant benefits cliffs, making benefits drop steeply at slight increases or work or income. I'm sure there's much more to be said by all my colleagues, but at this point, I'm going to turn it over to the chairman of our policy committee, Chairman Benninghoff.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us here on this beautiful 2nd of January. To my colleagues, Mr. Speaker, thank you as well. This has not been limited to our current efforts, but it's something that's very important. I'm honored as a policy chairman to be part of this. I think you had a good backdrop with our first two presenters, kind of setting the stage for where we're at. I just want to reiterate that welfare is a huge and ever-growing cost driver of our state budget, something we wrestle with every year. Enacting real reforms to help curb these costs should be a no-brainer, regardless of which side of the aisle you sit on. As was stated earlier, I made welfare reform a priority on our policy committee. This year we hosted several hearings across the state, focusing on how we can use taxpayers' money more reasonable. We held those 4 hearings across the state in different areas. Frustrating to many of my members behind me and others who were in attendance, we heard it over and over. People know how to work the system, and they're not doing much to get off of it. Let me be clear, they shouldn't take the blame for that. The reality is, we, through our own policy, have enabled that. We have welfare to work requirements, but they're not being enforced. I couldn't believe how many times as we sat through those hearings, hearing different employers say over and over, we have the jobs available, we just can't find the people who are willing to work, can show up, or pass a drug test. It was both sad and frustrating to hear what we all speculated, that thousands of Pennsylvanians getting assistance would rather collect benefits than earn a paycheck. That's unacceptable, and frankly sad that we've demoralized the fact that we don't appreciate the dignity of earning that check. While it may not be very popular under this dome, but it is true to say this. Word is out that Pennsylvania is one of the most, and unnecessarily, generous states in the nation, and we are the people taking full advantage of that fact. This is not a Republican or Democrat issue, in my opinion. It's good, responsible government. It's about integrity. Pennsylvanians are generous, and we're willing to help people that need help. But rightfully, we expect that their hard-earned money to be used efficiently, fairly, and for those truly in need. Aaron mentioned some legislation. I introduced House Bill 1788, which is respect to a federal program known as TANF, which provides funding to the states for a variety of benefits, predominantly the use of cash welfare. Federal law restricts the use of this funding for more than 60 months, a 5-year period of assistance. However, states are able to set parameters that are shorter than that. Currently in Pennsylvania, people can not only get cash assistance for full 5 years, allowed by federal government, but in some cases, waivers are granted and they get it even longer. We even heard stories of those who've lost that benefit in another state after 5 years. Restriction coming to Pennsylvania to get it. Pennsylvania is one of the most generous states in the nation with this benefit. Many others have shortened the window for cash assistance, and it's time Pennsylvania follows suit. It's been proven that a 5-year benefit does not really help our society. It only encourages government dependency and nothing to really help reestablish people and get them back in the working population. These safety nets were created not to become a way of life, but to help people out of poverty and to provide cover for families who, by no fault of their own, illness, marital changes, or whatever, have come across difficult times. An empathetic government helps those at those times, but doesn't create the dependency. These safety nets are now being abused. To encourage people to end their dependency on government and get back to work, I've introduced this bill to eliminate the benefits beyond the federal 5-year time span, known as TANF, and establish a cumulative 48-month lifetime limit here in the state of Pennsylvania. I think we can all agree when it doesn't make financial sense for someone to wake up each day, put in a day's work, and collect a paycheck, we have a problem. The one specific testifier at one of our hearings probably frustrated me the most. He ran a deli, and he talked about how he knew each day that we issued the checks because people would come into his deli and order the most expensive lobster and steaks he had and take them down the road and sell them to a local tavern or club at half the price. This man was not only frustrated by seeing his tax dollars being used like that, but his tax dollars were actually competing against his business, who should have been selling that tavern club those types of commodities. That's not right, it's not fair, and it's not fair to the working people that are helping to finance that. Last, we need these reforms to ensure getting up and going to work and collecting a paycheck is the best financial option for Pennsylvanians and their families. We need to restore these folks to want to work so that they can experience the dignity and the satisfaction of cashing a paycheck and providing for their family. I still have my first pay stub when I worked construction, making $99 take-home pay after 40 hours a week. And I keep that as a reflection to know that hard work can allow you to earn more than that. Getting people over government dependency not only helps us economically, but it helps them and their dignity and shows their family and their children that bringing a paycheck home is an honorable thing. It's what we confess about being an American, having the ability to earn whatever you have the ability to do. And that's why we want to help free these people. Without further ado, I'll turn the microphone back to Mike Tobash. Gentlemen, ladies, thank you very much for being here.
Chairman Benninghoff, thank you very much. And Chairman Benninghoff has been a terrific leader, taking this message throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania through his policy committee. I'm honored to serve on that committee. Keep up the good work. I have to just mention again, the Speaker has been a leader on this issue for many, many years when he was caucus leader at one point in time, and Leader Reed also has embraced this issue. So I think 2018, I know 2018 is the year to really get some reform done in this regard. And I can tell you, I'm going to give you a few examples in a bit, but we are absolutely going in the wrong direction right now. I'd like to introduce Representative Kristen Phillips-Hill. She's got one of the bills in the package, and I wanted to give her an opportunity to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Tobash, and thank you, Representative Kaufer. Really appreciate their leadership on this very important issue for Pennsylvania. Speaker Turzai, your leadership is greatly appreciated as well. I'm Representative Kristen Phillips-Hill, and I have the honor of representing the 93rd Legislative District in Southern York County. And I would like to add that in this effort, we can't forget our children. So as the first line of support for children, parents should be given every opportunity to live up to their responsibility. And that's why I have authored House Bill 1559, which would ensure a child's access to adequate food. When parents need financial help providing food for their children, we, as a society, give aid to ensure that every child has access to adequate nutrition. SNAP, which stands for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and that's under this program, every state has the option to implement a child support cooperation requirement on either custodial or non-custodial parents participating in the program. House Bill 1559 proposes to exercise this option in the Commonwealth. We will be following federal guidelines which provide guidance on this issue for states who take up the option, including notification requirements, good cause exceptions, such as victims of domestic abuse, referrals of individuals to state support enforcement agencies, disqualification periods, as well as sanctions. Pennsylvania currently imposes a child support cooperation requirement for those who apply for TANF, which, as you know, is Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, as well as Medicaid. My legislation would extend this type of requirement for those parents who apply for food stamps by requiring the Department of Health and Human Services to opt into the federal option for both custodial and non-custodial parents alike. By implementing this requirement for food stamps, we affirm a primary responsibility of a parent, and we also provide due diligence to ensure that state aid is being used as intended. House Bill 1559 currently has support on both sides of the aisle, and I look forward to my colleagues joining us in support of this legislation and our efforts to protect Pennsylvania's children. Thank you very much.
Representative Phillips Hill, and we really do look forward to bipartisan, bicameral support with support from the administration on this effort. Just want to read you a memorandum that went out just very recently, December 28th, and it has to do with the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program that Representative Phillips Hill just talked about. And here's what it says, that the federal regulation requires able-bodied adults age 18 through 49 with no dependents to meet work requirements as a condition of ongoing SNAP eligibility. As of January 1st, 2018, just yesterday, the areas that are waived have been changed from the ABAW, that's the able-bodied, without children, without dependents work requirement, and it has been changed to include 16 more counties. So Pennsylvania will now stand at 59 counties and 10 cities and towns that have been waived from the federal requirement, and you're able to collect ongoing benefits indefinitely if you are able-bodied without dependents age 18 to 49 and still collect that benefit. Again, we talk about a cycle of poverty. We talk about the dignity that comes with people entering the workforce, and we've got a program right now in place that goes on indefinitely and allows people to choose welfare over gainful employment. It's not helping the citizens of Pennsylvania. I've got a couple of brief stories. Autumn, can you join me here? I brought a friend of mine here to the Capitol today, actually a family friend, and I've got just two stories, and I don't want to belabor this, but I think the human element of this is so very important. I've got another friend who came to me a number of weeks ago and gave me this story, and he wasn't able to join us today because he's working. His name is Travis Garris. He served 10 years in the Pennsylvania Army National Guard. He's a two-time combat vet who worked on the tanks that protect our freedom and American way of life, but his most important title is Dad. Travis is a single parent. He's got two boys ages 3 and 5, and when the military decided to downsize the tank program and cut back on the full-time positions, he was forced into what he called a dead-end job. Moreover, while he loved serving, his military skill set simply didn't translate well into the private sector. So what was he to do? Reluctantly, in his words, Travis sought help with the Pennsylvania welfare system, and although the welfare system offered him temporary cash assistance, it did little to assist him, increase his skill set, and left his pride wounded. Thanks to the hybrid system, it's a federal and a state workforce initiative program, Travis found both hope and education that gave him education into a program and an inroad into independence. Thanks to the increased skill set, Travis has now driven his way to a commercial driver's license and works as a tractor-trailer driver, delivering goods and services all over eastern Pennsylvania. At one dark time, Travis had only $100 in his savings account to support his two boys. That's the cycle of poverty that we talk about. Today, this single dad tells me that he is on his way to financial independence. Travis is financially stable. He can support his family, has pride performing meaningful duties on a daily basis. Travis is proud to say that he is part of the working community. Being on welfare was a nightmare that fortunately is now a memory for him. Travis's story is a prime example of how work incentives can transform lives of Pennsylvanians and their families and give them a pathway to prosperity. As legislators, we must ensure that Travis's story is not repeated time and time again, and that again, we put ourselves in a position where our economy can grow. I mentioned that I've got a young lady that's joining me today. She is a family friend. A number of years ago, being in the insurance business, I insured her family, and her father 13 years ago died of cancer. So we did some planning with her and her family, and a couple of years after that, I got a call from her mom, Nicole Minnick, and Nicole was in tears, and she said to me, Mike, I've got a part-time job. I'm working for a chiropractor's office. I like the people I work with. I love the work I'm doing, but in order for me to continue to receive the benefits to take care of my family, I need to quit the job. She was heartbroken. It wasn't good for her. It wasn't good for her family. But to receive the welfare benefits, health insurance, and the other benefits that were offered, she could no longer do that job. It was a number of years ago that she got back into the workforce, and she's working at a pizza shop right now, earning the minimum that allows her to collect benefits to provide for her family. Autumn is a junior right now at Temple University, really proud of the work that she's doing, but she agreed to come down here a little bit and tell just a little bit about her family story. Autumn, can you tell these people what you've been through?
So when my father had passed away, my mom had to quit her job. And when she quit her job, you can see that she was obviously depressed. She just kind of sat at home and moped around for 6 years until she was able to enter the workforce again. But when she did enter the workforce, she had to make sure that she made under the threshold to ensure that we still got benefits and we can get the health care that we deserve.
That's it. I mean, so the comment that Autumn had to me when we were talking this morning, that there's a system that encourages people in Pennsylvania to do the minimum, not to work to their full capacity. How is that helping our economy? How is allowing 59 counties in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and 10 cities to encourage people to choose welfare over an active working lifestyle? This is an issue that we've got to take care of. As I mentioned before, we need to be proactive about this issue, and these stories will stop if we can indeed enact the legislation that these 20 or so bills are offering to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I thank you so much for being here, and before we adjourn, I'd like Speaker Turzai to say a few words. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Michael, thank you. I'm so honored to be here with the House Republican team. I'd ask each of the members who are here today to identify themselves in the districts and the counties that they represent. We'll begin with Representative Schemmel.
I'm Representative Paul Schemmel from the 90th District in Franklin County. Jesse Topper, 78th District, Bedford, Fulton, and Franklin counties.
Aaron Kaufer, 120th District, Luzerne County.
Seth Grove, 196th District, York County.
Kristen Phillips Hill, 93rd District, York County.
Dawn Kiefer, 92nd District, York and Cumberland counties.
Chris Dush, Jefferson, Indiana County, 66th District.
Kerry Benninghoff, Center, Mifflin County.
Representative Dan Mal, 91st District, Adams County.
Representative Brad Roy, 6th District, Crocker County and Erie County.
Representative Kurt Bosser, 107th District, Northumberland, Montour, and Columbia counties.
Representative Mike Tobash, 125th District, Schuylkill and Dauphin, parts of Dauphin.
It's an honor to be with each and every one of these members and our other House Republican colleagues that have worked so diligently on this reform package to how we manage human services and really getting folks into the workforce to provide dignity and to be able to take care of their families. And the key, I think, is the entire leadership team is very supportive. Chairman Benninghoff and Representative Mosser, both part of the leadership team. Also, the Majority Leader Dave Reed and the Majority Whip Brian Cutler have been significantly supportive of this policy along with the other leaders. We believe that human services recognizes the dignity of each and every person who comes through the door, and we want to promote that dignity through work and a pathway to self-sufficiency. Just a few quick points. We passed a number of welfare reform measures in House Bill 59. Many of these individuals that you see here were the authors of that product. Chief among them was a provision that would have directed the governor's office to work with the federal government to enact a work requirement for able-bodied adults in our Medicaid program. Let me be clear, this applied only to able-bodied adults. It did not apply to children or seniors or the disabled, or for moms who were expecting. The federal government has in fact signaled an openness to approving such programs, and already 6 states have submitted these proposals. Unfortunately, Governor Wolf vetoed the bill. We actually thought that that would have been a very, very significant step for Pennsylvania to move forward. Back in 2011, the House Republicans had enacted a number of reforms, and many of them were signed into law under Act 22 of 2011. One reform was to require that a 19-point electronic data system be used to verify and check applicants' eligibility. As you may know, there are folks that actually will be in one state and apply for assistance and come to Pennsylvania and apply for assistance. There are other examples of those particular cases of fraud. An independent verification system, in fact, allows you to weed those out. Now, part of that requirement was that there were supposed to be reports submitted to the legislature. Back in 2012, the department showed that they saved nearly 67 million people by the use of this system that was put together by our former colleague, Representative Mari Gingrich of Lebanon County. Now, we have not received one report since this administration has taken place, and we do not know the efficacy of that reform or any others. The fact of the matter is there's an opportunity to help each and every Pennsylvania citizen. This is the same group that's out there talking about family-sustaining jobs, bringing manufacturing and energy independence to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This is the same group that's been talking about how do we improve our career and technical education for the students all across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania so that they can land those outstanding family-sustaining jobs. This is the same group that, while increasing education to public schools, has also pushed for school choice, both because we care about every kid and we understand one size does not fit all, and we want to make sure that basic skills in math, science, and English and communication are actually being brought to the fore for each and every one of our students. We are folks that have been really taking significant approach to how do we lift everybody. That's the key. That's what this group's about. They want to lift people's opportunities. They want to provide hope, and they want to get the most out of government. Yes, we are going to take care of those who are most vulnerable. Since Governor Corbett first took office and we took back the majority, we have increased by millions of dollars each and every year monies towards those individuals with disabilities. We all have a compassionate heart. We also want to make sure that those that can work are able to work, and we want to get the jobs and the training connected with the individuals so that they don't have to be dependent on government. We don't want to be focused on needle exchanges. We want to be focused on making sure that everybody has a great opportunity to succeed in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. With that, Representative Tobash, thank you for your great leadership here.
Dealing with many of the issues that we need to deal with here in this upcoming year, and I want to give the media, I want to thank them again and give the media an opportunity to ask any questions that you've got for the people that are working on this legislation. Questions?
Define able-bodied for us and how it would apply here? What determines able-bodied in the way these bills are written?
So able-bodied is defined as people who are not seniors, not children, and not disabled. So able-bodied, based on what we've looked at, is about 52 to 66% of this population that we're talking about overall and what we're discussing.
Age 18 to 49, no dependents.
That's 52 to 66% who's already currently receiving benefits, you're saying? How much money, I know you want to focus on the fiscal side of it, how much money of that 40% of the general fund do you think is a potential change here?
So we just started working with appropriations. They are beginning to run numbers. Final language was submitted recently. We don't have exact numbers on what that's going to be, but the whole point of this is to take people who are receiving benefits and make them now taxpayers. And by shifting that burden from people who are receiving to people who will then be contributing, changes, at least in the dollar sense, if we can get the people to work that we've seen in other states, between $175 million and $210 million in recurring revenue back to our Commonwealth.
We talked a lot about Kansas. The most recent report that I found out of Kansas had a negative side of this, and that the number of child abuse and child neglect cases increased 30% based on numbers from their Department of Human Services. Maybe that speaks to Representative Phillip Hill's legislation, but how do we avoid those sort of pitfalls in processes like this?
So, I mean, as Representative Kaufer has just mentioned, we need to do the fiscal notes on every one of these bills. Look, the theory here is very simple. Pennsylvania should be able to work harder and earn more than work less and earn more. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for our economy. And we have to take a look at all the things that are the unintended consequences. And studying a model like what some other states have done, look, as Representative Kaufer mentioned, Maine has been very successful. So when you take a look at the fiscal aspect, there's no question that I think we can help our budget, and this trend that we are seeing, that over the next 10 years, our human service budget is expected to greatly outpace our rate of economic growth in this state if we don't get a grip on it. So we need to work to grow our economy to help provide the benefits that Pennsylvanians that truly need them get them. And what you're talking about here is a really important element of that. We want to make sure we're addressing it through these bills.
Thanks, guys.
I want to thank everyone once again. It's an important time here in the future of Pennsylvania. As I mentioned earlier, we need to be proactive on these issues. My colleagues being here on the 2nd of January, it's gratifying to see that we've got a commitment right here to get the mission that we've set out to accomplish. Thank you very much.